Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real quick. You will never hear a narcissist say, "I was wrong," and mean it. You won't hear, "I hurt you and I'm sorry." You won't get, "You didn't deserve that." See, narcissists don't apologize. They don't self-reflect, and they don't admit defeat. Unless they've truly been shaken to their core, unless they've been hit in the one place they never thought you'd reach, their ego. So if a narcissist ever says certain things to you, genuinely not as a trick, it means you won. You broke the cycle. You escaped the trap. You flipped the script on the one person who thought they'd always have the upper hand. In this speech, I'm about to give you 6 things a narcissist might say that prove you've truly defeated them. So don't go anywhere, because once you recognize these signs, you'll stop doubting yourself forever. When a narcissist says to you, "You've changed," it may sound like just a casual observation, but underneath those 2 little words is something much deeper, something they never wanted to admit. See, when a narcissist says you've changed, it's not a compliment. It's not said with pride or admiration. It's said with confusion, frustration, and often a quiet kind of fear. Because what they're really saying is, "You're no longer who I could control." They say it when your reactions no longer feed their ego, when your patience, your empathy, and your tolerance, the very things they abused, are no longer on the table. It's the moment they realize that the old version of you, the one they manipulated with guilt, with charm, with silence, with chaos, doesn't live here anymore. You've changed, and to them, that means they've lost. For the longest time, they counted on the patterns. You'd forgive, you'd reach out, you'd question yourself, you'd explain why you were hurt, thinking they'd finally understand. You gave them so many chances that they started to believe you'd never stop. That's what they built their power on, your willingness to love them even when they didn't deserve it. But when you change, when you stop playing the same emotional game, that's when everything they believed starts to fall apart. When you start showing up differently, calmer, more grounded, more distant, they get uncomfortable. They don't know what to do with this new version of you. The one who doesn't react, the one who doesn't explain, the one who doesn't chase after someone who keeps walking away. They call it, "You've changed." But what they mean is, "I can't use you like I used to." They might try to twist it. "You used to be so sweet. You were never like this before. I don't even know who you are anymore." And that's exactly the point. They don't. Because you've grown, you've healed, you've realized your worth. And most of all, you've stopped making excuses for their behavior. You stopped minimizing your pain just to keep the peace. You stopped dimming your light to make their ego feel safe. And this change they're talking about, it didn't happen overnight. It came from nights you cried yourself to sleep wondering what was wrong with you. It came from days you blamed yourself for their mood swings, their silence, their coldness. It came from years of believing that love meant sacrificing your needs. So no, this change didn't come easy. It came through fire. It came through growth. And now that you're standing on the other side, stronger and wiser, they don't know how to reach you anymore. They don't have the same access. They can't get the same reactions. And they hate it. Because now, when they try to guilt you, you stay silent. When they try to twist the truth, you don't argue. When they disappear and return, you don't welcome them with open arms. You just keep it moving. That's the change they're feeling. It's the shift of power. From them back to you. They'll try to make you feel bad for it, like you've become cold or heartless. But what they don't see is that your love didn't go away. It just returned home to you. You're no longer pouring it into someone who uses it as fuel for their games. You're no longer explaining to someone who never listened. You're no longer showing up for someone who was never really there for you. You've changed, is what they say when they can no longer manipulate the healed version of you. It's their way of saying, I don't know how to handle someone who loves themselves. It's their way of admitting defeat without ever saying the words. And the truth is, they never expected it. They thought you'd be there forever, stuck in the loop, waiting for them to become who you needed. But you finally saw the truth, and you chose yourself. So yes, you've changed. You've become wiser, stronger, quieter, more focused. And if that makes you unrecognizable to them, good. Because the person they knew, the one who tolerated their disrespect, the one who kept trying, kept explaining, kept hoping, is gone. And in their eyes, that change means you've won. They just don't want to say it out loud. But deep down, they know. When they said, you've changed, what they really meant was, you're not mine to manipulate anymore. And that's when you know you've truly defeated them. When a narcissist says, I don't know what happened to you, they aren't confused by accident. That line is their way of trying to make you question the very strength you fought so hard to build. They don't mean it out of concern, and it's not because they're genuinely trying to understand. What they're really saying is, I don't recognize this version of you, the one I can't control. See, narcissists study you in the beginning. They figure out what makes you tick, what makes you give, what makes you stay. They figure out your soft spots, your empathy, your patience, your need to fix things, and then they use those traits to manipulate the situation in their favor. You might not have seen it back then because it looked like love. It felt like attention. It came wrapped in charm and flattery. But over time, the mask slipped. And even as things got worse, you tried to hold on. You gave them the benefit of the doubt. You explained things gently. You stayed longer than you should have. But eventually something inside you changed. Maybe it was one big betrayal. Maybe it was the last silent treatment. Maybe it was the realization that they weren't going to change. Whatever it was, it woke you up. And the shift wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Quiet like boundaries. Quiet like healing. Quiet like finally getting tired of spinning in circles. And that quiet change, that's what they feel. That's what makes them say, I don't know what happened to you. They say it when you don't rise to the bait. When they try the same old game and you just don't play. When they expect you to beg, to chase, to apologize for things they did, and instead you stay calm, you stay grounded, you keep your peace. That confuses them. Because in their mind, you were supposed to be stuck. You were supposed to stay the same, always willing to bend just to keep the connection alive. But now you've changed. You're not the person they left behind. You're not the version of you that allowed them to walk in and out of your life as they pleased. You're not explaining your worth anymore. You're not trying to convince them of how they hurt you. You've stopped needing them to understand because you finally understand yourself. I don't know what happened to you, is what a narcissist says when their manipulation doesn't land anymore, when their charm feels empty, when their games fall flat. It's not that they don't know what happened. It's that they never expected it. They never thought you'd stop responding. They never thought you'd go silent and mean it. They never thought you'd be okay without them. And now that you are, they're scared. Not scared of you, but scared of the reflection they see in your growth. Because your healing exposes their damage. Your strength reveals their weakness. Your distance highlights how much access they no longer have. And instead of owning their behavior, they turn it back on you. I don't know what happened to you becomes their way of saying, you're no longer easy to manipulate, and I don't like it. But here's what really happened. You stopped shrinking yourself to fit into broken love. You stopped accepting crumbs. You stopped trading your peace for temporary attention. You started pouring all that love, all that energy, all that effort into yourself. You realized you were never the problem. You were the pattern breaker. You were the light in the dark. And now that you've pulled that light away, they're left in the shadow of their own behavior. That's what they don't recognize. That's what makes them uncomfortable, because the person they once had power over now has power over themselves. And that's what victory looks like. Not yelling, not revenge, just peace, just boundaries, just self-respect that doesn't require their approval anymore. So the next time a narcissist says, "I don't know what happened to you," don't explain. Don't justify your growth. Don't make yourself smaller just to be understood by someone who never tried to understand you in the first place. Smile, stand tall, and know exactly what happened. You woke up. You healed. You chose yourself, and they will never be able to handle that. When a narcissist says, "Why won't you talk to me?" it's not about communication. It's about control. That question might sound simple. It might sound like they miss you, like they suddenly care, like they want to understand. But don't be fooled. That's not what it means. What they're really saying is, "Why can't I reach you like I used to?" It's confusion mixed with frustration. Because silence from you, that's the one thing they never expected, and it shakes them. Narcissists feed on attention. Good, bad, angry, emotional. It doesn't matter. As long as they're the focus, they feel important. They could lie, cheat, manipulate, and still expect you to show up emotionally. They could ghost you for days, then send a 2-word message and expect a paragraph in return. That's how much they believe they own your reaction. That's how much they expect access to your time, your energy, your heart. So when you stop answering, when you go completely silent, it's like the air gets sucked out of their world. They don't know how to function without your emotional supply. You not talking to them doesn't just hurt their feelings. It shatters their illusion of control. Because in their mind, no matter what they did, they believed you would always pick up the phone. You'd always reply. You'd always come back. They never imagined a version of you that's no longer available. That's why they start asking questions like, "Why won't you talk to me?" They're confused, not because they don't understand what they did, but because they're shocked that you finally hit your limit. And here's the key: they do know what they did. They know the lies, the gaslighting, the disrespect, the moments they ignored your pain. But they didn't think it would ever cost them you. They assumed your love for them was stronger than your love for yourself. But now you're gone. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You've disconnected. You've stopped needing closure, stopped needing their validation, stopped needing their version of the story. That's silence. It's peace, hard-earned soul, deep peace. And they don't know how to handle it. They'll say, "You're being dramatic," or "We can talk like adults," or "I just want to clear the air." But all of that is bait. They don't want closure. They want control. They don't want a conversation. They want to pull you back in. Because when you talk to them, even just a little, it means they still matter. It means they still have a piece of you. And if they still have access, they can still do damage. But when you don't respond, when you give them nothing, not a text, not a call, not a look, that's when they start to feel powerless. That's when they realize they're not the center of your world anymore. And that realization hits them hard. Because silence from someone they once controlled isn't just rejection. It's a loss of power. You not talking to them means you've changed. You're no longer looking for healing from the same person who hurt you. You've stopped explaining yourself to someone who never truly listened. You've walked away not just in body, but in spirit. That silence tells them, you no longer have a place in my life. And they feel that message loud and clear, even if you never say a word. That's what makes your silence so powerful. It's not passive, it's intentional. It says, I've tried, I've cried, I've broken myself into pieces trying to make this work. But now I'm done. It says, I refuse to argue. I refuse to explain what you already know. I refuse to let you drain me one more time. It says, you don't get to come and go from my life like it's a revolving door anymore. And that silence becomes your boundary, your protection, your way of saying, you no longer have access to me. It's not out of hate. It's not about revenge. It's about peace. It's about dignity. It's about reclaiming your power and finally understanding that no response is a response. And it's the one they never expected from you. So when the narcissist says, why won't you talk to me? Just know that question is your proof. Proof that your silence is working, that you've broken the cycle, that they feel the distance, the shift, the growth. They know they've lost their grip. They know you've disconnected. And they know deep down this time you're not coming back. They wanted your attention, but you chose your freedom. And in the end, that choice says everything they need to hear without you having to say a single word. When a narcissist says, you think you're better than me now, it's not just a random accusation. It's a cry from their wounded ego. They don't say this because they're trying to understand you. They say it because they're watching you rise without them, and it's killing them inside. See, narcissists survive off the idea that they are the center of your world, that without their approval, you don't feel whole, that they are the sun and you orbit around their mood, their attention, their validation. So when you start acting like you don't need that anymore, they take it as a personal attack. Not because you've hurt them, but because you've outgrown them. You think you're better than me now? Usually comes out when they can feel your energy shifting. Maybe you're not answering their messages like before. Maybe you've blocked them. Maybe you've started smiling more, living more, shining in ways that used to be dimmed by their presence. You're no longer chasing conversations. You're no longer defending yourself. You're no longer bending your truth to keep the peace. And to a narcissist, that looks like you're acting brand new. That looks like arrogance. That looks like rejection. But what it really is healing. It's self-respect. It's boundaries. It's confidence. And narcissists don't handle that well, especially when it's coming from someone they once had wrapped around their finger. They're not really asking if you think you're better than them. They're saying, how dare you stop needing me? They're saying, why aren't you chasing me anymore? They're saying, you're supposed to be beneath me, not beside me, and definitely not above me. It's all about control. And when they see you reclaiming yours, they have no choice but to respond with the only language they know, manipulation. That sentence is a trap. It's designed to make you feel guilty for growing, to make you shrink back down, to make you second guess your strength. Because if you start questioning whether you've become cold or too good or unfair, you might backtrack. You might try to prove to them that you're still humble, still available, still soft enough to pull back in. But don't fall for it. You're not acting superior. You're just no longer sacrificing your worth to please someone who never appreciated it. You're not better than them. You're just better than the version of you who tolerated what they brought to the table. You're not being arrogant. You're being aware. Aware of how many times you were blamed for their mistakes. Aware of how often they turned your love into leverage. Aware of how long you stayed hoping they would change. And now that you've chosen yourself, they can't handle it. Your independence makes them insecure. Your boundaries feel like rejection. your growth feels like betrayal. Because in their mind, they were supposed to be the one who moved on. They were supposed to be the one who thrived while you were left broken, confused, stuck. But that didn't happen. Instead, you walked away from the wreckage, cleaned yourself off, and started building something new without them. They can see the glow on your face, the calm in your voice, the silence in your responses. They can feel the distance. And it haunts them because it means they no longer define you. And that's what they really wanted all along, not love, but power. So when they say, "You think you're better than me now," let that be confirmation that your growth is showing, that your healing is being noticed, that your refusal to be used again is loud and clear. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to convince them that you're still the same person. Because you're not the same person. And that's the whole point. You've grown, you've elevated, you've taken your power back. Not to make them feel small, but because you finally realized you deserve more than living in survival mode. Their words are an attempt to pull you back down to their level, but you don't live there anymore. You've moved on. You've upgraded your mindset, your standards, your environment. You've stopped handing your worth over to someone who didn't know what to do with it. So the next time they say, "You think you're better than me now?" smile quietly. Not out of pride, but out of peace. Because you don't have to say a word. Your healing already answered the question. And deep down, they know the truth. It's not that you think you're better than them. It's that you finally stopped believing they were better than you. And that, right there, is the moment they realize they lost. When a narcissist looks at you and says, "You're cold now," they don't mean you've turned heartless. They don't mean you've become cruel. What they really mean is you're not who you were when I could walk all over you. That sentence, those three little words, they're not coming from love or concern. They're coming from confusion, frustration, maybe even panic, because to them, you used to be warm. You used to be available. You used to be wide open with your heart, your time, your forgiveness, your love. And now you've gone still, quiet, unbothered. And that doesn't fit their script. Narcissists count on your warmth. It's what fuels the dynamic. They rely on your compassion, your need to fix things, your willingness to see the good in them, even after they show you the worst. You're the one who understood their past, justified their behavior, explained away the red flags, and kept believing they could do better. You gave them the benefit of the doubt over and over again. And for a long time, they counted on that. They needed that. So when they say you're cold, what they're really seeing is your boundary. They're seeing your distance, your silence, your refusal to keep showing up for someone who repeatedly let you down. They're seeing that you've stopped asking why. You've stopped needing closure. You've stopped needing answers to questions they were never going to answer honestly. And to a narcissist, that looks like emotional detachment. That looks like something's wrong with you. But in reality, that's what healing looks like. It's called self-respect. It's called preservation. It's called choosing yourself. They'll try to make you feel guilty for it. You used to be so loving. You've changed. You've built walls. And yes, you have. But not because you wanted to push people away. You built those walls because you spent too long wide open, emotionally exposed, letting someone walk through your heart with muddy shoes and no accountability. You built those walls because you realized not everyone deserves access to your soft side. You didn't become cold. You became careful. And being careful doesn't mean you've shut down. It doesn't mean you've stopped feeling. It means you finally learned how to protect yourself. Because your heart has scars now. It's been through battles. It's been stretched too far. It's been bruised by sweet words followed by sharp actions. And now, you're not just giving it away. Not to anyone who hasn't proven they'll hold it with care. So when they say you're cold, don't absorb that as truth. Understand where it's coming from. They're not used to boundaries. They're not used to hearing no without an explanation. They're not used to you not reacting, not explaining, not defending yourself. Your calmness is unsettling to them. Your stillness is not something they know how to respond to. Because before, they could press a button and get a reaction. Now, they press and get nothing. And that nothing, that's what drives them crazy. You're not being cold. You're just no longer emotionally available to someone who used your emotions as weapons. You're no longer offering warmth to someone who turned that warmth into control. And yes, it feels different to them because this version of you, the one who's quiet, detached, protective of your peace, that's the version they never prepared for. That's the version that doesn't need them anymore. What hurts them isn't your coldness, it's your clarity. It's that you finally see things as they are, not as you hoped they would be. You're not holding on to potential. You're not chasing apologies. You're not trying to rewrite the story. You've closed the book. And to someone who thought they'd always have a chapter in your life, that silence is louder than any goodbye. They miss the old you, the forgiving you, the one who showed up no matter how badly they behaved. But that version of you was burning out. That version was exhausted. That version had to leave so you could survive. So when they say, you're cold now, let that be a reminder. A reminder that you've grown. A reminder that you found your strength. A reminder that choosing peace over chaos is not a flaw, it's a victory. You're not cold. You're healed. You're no longer available for emotional games. You're not waiting to be understood by someone who never listened in the first place. Let them call it cold. You know what it really is, freedom. And that's something they'll never be able to take from you again. When a narcissist finally says the words, I didn't think you'd actually leave, you need to understand something right away. That is not a compliment, and it is not an apology. It is a confession of how little they respected your boundaries, a confession of how much they underestimated your strength, a confession that they never truly believed you had it in you to walk away from the chaos for good. See, narcissists don't take your threats seriously. They don't believe your tears are real warnings. They've seen you hurt, but they've also seen you stay. They've watched you cry one night and forgive the next morning. They've heard you say, I'm done, before, then watched you reopen the door as soon as they knocked. So when you finally stop responding, when you pack your piece and disappear, when you stop explaining, stop arguing, stop giving them any emotional reaction at all, it shakes them. Because narcissists live off patterns. They count on predictability. They know what button to push, what story to spin, what line to say to pull you right back in. Maybe they use guilt. Maybe they use charm. Maybe they fake vulnerability just enough to make you question your decision. But it always worked before. So when it stops working, when you actually disappear, when your energy is no longer in reach, they don't know what to do. That's when you hear it, I didn't think you'd actually leave. And that one sentence is loaded. It's not just about you physically walking away. It's about everything they lost the moment you disconnected. They lost control. They lost emotional access. They lost the ability to twist your heart into knots and still expect a warm welcome. They say it because they're shocked. Shocked that you're not just gone, but silent. That you didn't storm off in anger, hoping they'd chase you. That you didn't post cryptic messages online, trying to get their attention. You just stopped, quietly, calmly. And that calm is what drives them crazy. Because your peace is louder than your pain ever was. And here's what really burns them. You meant it this time. You didn't just leave. you didn't just block their number. You moved differently. You moved forward. You healed. You rebuilt. You smiled again without needing their validation. And now they're stuck, replaying every moment they thought they had you on a string. They thought you were weak. They thought your love was desperation. They thought your loyalty was permission. But they didn't understand that your love was a choice. A beautiful, deep, patient choice. And when that love runs out, it's not with screaming or slamming doors. It's with stillness. It's with distance. It's with silence. So when they say, I didn't think you'd actually leave, they're really saying, I didn't think you'd ever put yourself first. They're saying, I didn't think you'd ever stop waiting for me to get it right. They're saying, I thought I'd always have access to you, no matter how many times I hurt you. And now, they're sitting in the emptiness they created. They're staring at a door that's not just closed, it's locked. They're realizing that they gambled with something priceless and lost, not because they didn't care at all, but because they thought you cared too much to ever walk away. But you did. And that's the moment they knew they lost the one thing they never thought they'd lose: your belief in them, your hope, your life, your love. You leaving wasn't an impulsive decision. It was the result of countless chances they squandered. Countless nights you doubted yourself. Countless times you gave grace and they gave nothing in return. You gave them room to change and they gave you reasons to leave. So when they finally see you gone for real, it breaks something in them. Not because they finally see your worth, but because they finally see they can't control it anymore. And that right there is the real defeat. You didn't just walk away. You healed the part of you that always needed to go back. You rewrote the story. You found strength they hoped you never find. You became the version of yourself they didn't believe you could become. So if a narcissist ever looks at you and says, I didn't think you'd actually leave, hear that for what it really is: proof. Proof that you were stronger than they ever imagined. Proof that you broke the cycle. Proof that you, not them, had the final word. They didn't think you'd leave. They didn't think you'd stay gone. They didn't think you'd glow without them. But you did. And that silence, that freedom, that's the sound of you winning.